There is a lot to learn when you're in training to become a bus operator. Your instructors have discussed safety, bus maneuvering, commercial driver license requirements, company rules, fare collection, and so on. If you haven't already been learning the bus routes, you will learn the bus routes. A big part of the job is operating on a schedule. My name is Arthur Gaudette. I started as a bus cleaner over 54 years ago. I spent time as an operator. I have been an instructor. I've also moved up through the ranks to become general manager. In the last 30 plus years, I have specialized in scheduling as a consultant. In the next 30 or 40 minutes, we'll try to provide much of what you'll need to know about running on time, running to a schedule, here in one place. As you progress through training, you may want to watch this video again. There's a lot to talk about, so you may want to take notes. When we talk about words and language, your transit system may use different words. Policies, of course, may vary a little bit in different cities, but the concepts are the same. We're going to go through the process from words that you will see and use to giving you some background on how schedules are developed. We'll talk about on-time performance, running late, and why running early is a big problem in our industry. We'll discuss some operating techniques to give you something to think about as you continue in training. Now, I'm sure that your trainers keep emphasizing safety. Above all, remember that safety is more important than maintaining schedule. Accidents cause not only property damage, but injuries, which can be life-changing. We want to get passengers there on time, but our prime obligation is to get them and you there safely. Let's get into some of the terms you'll see. Again, some wording may be a little different on your system, but the principles are the same everywhere. Differences will be clarified by your instructors and other operators. If at any time you're unsure what something means, please ask for clarification. It is important to understand this material. The schedule, which we also call the public timetable, may be on paper, it may be online, it may be available through smartphone applications. It's our promise to the public. Buses don't run like Uber. Anytime the passenger wants to travel, passengers must plan their day, and the bus schedule is key. The operator schedule paddle is the schedule for your bus, telling you where to be and when. It will probably have other information like destination sign codes, fare box, mobile data terminal route run information, and so on. It may also be called something else on your transit system like a running board, a manifest, or a waybill, but schedule paddle is the common term in the transit industry. Your instructors will also focus on how you read whatever kind of schedule paddle is used on your transit system. From one end of a bus route to the other, you'll pass a number of time points. Often they are spaced about 10 minutes driving time apart. They are shown on the public timetable as well as on your schedule paddle. Your job is to manage your driving speed between those time points as best you can. Over the 10-minute span between time points, how you drive can make a difference of a minute or more. Not every bus stop is a time point. Between time points, you will pass many bus stops. When bus stops are between time points, passengers judge when to arrive at their specific stop based on when the bus should have passed the previous time point. The end of the line is both the starting point of your one-way trip and the ending point when you get to the other end. You may see it abbreviated with the letters EOL for end of line. There may be a transit center, sometimes called a hub, central station, transfer station, or some other term. In this picture, it's in front of a railroad station where people can also transfer to and from trains. Essentially, it is a point where multiple bus routes meet so passengers can transfer among those bus routes. Operator report time is the time when you are to report for work, often to the dispatcher's window. It's normally when your pay starts, so you should report ready to go to work, having already taken care of restroom and other needs. Pull-out time is when the bus is scheduled to leave the garage, giving you enough time to reach your starting point. Leaving the garage late puts you behind the curve and creates stress for yourself. Your transit system may allow you to leave a few minutes early. If it does, and you take advantage of that, you have a better chance to start your day relaxed and safe. At the end of the day, there's a set time the bus is expected to arrive back at the garage. It may be when the day's pay stops, or there may be a little bit of a time allowance for post-trip inspection, paperwork, and so on. One thing to remember, if you happen to be a little late on your last trip, there is no reason to rush back to the garage. Safety comes first. Our purpose is to carry passengers, operating in what is known as revenue service, from the first time point of the day to the last time point of the day, just before we return to the garage. Before getting to the starting point, you deadhead from the garage, and at the end of the day, you deadhead an empty bus back to the garage. You may also hear the term headway. The word headway means the interval between buses, as you see in the example on the screen. We mentioned that time points are generally spaced roughly 10 minutes apart. That's time, not distance. Some segments may be on faster roads with few stops. Other segments may go through neighborhoods. You may have some school zones that slow things down. The running time is that time allowed from time point A to time point B to time point C, and so on. Recovery time is the shock absorber for anything that happens along each trip. One trip may have multiple passengers with mobility devices, like wheelchairs and walkers. Another trip may have a lot of bike rack usage. Emergency vehicles may cross our path and cause delay. We know that will happen, but not when, where, or how often. So recovery time is provided, most often at the end of the line. It's the time between the scheduled arrival and the scheduled departure time for your next trip going back in the other direction. It's there to let you get back on time. Of course, it's also often an opportunity for a restroom or other break. But remember, the prime purpose of recovery time is to let you get back on time. The term block identifies the group of scheduled trips operated by a single vehicle. For example, a bus route with 5 buses in operation will have 5 block numbers, each identifying the schedule for that specific bus. A bus can stay out as long as it has fuel or battery range. Operators can't drive that long. The process of dividing up a long bus block into individual pieces of work for each bus operator, or cutting the block into work, is called the run cut. It's done by the staff in the scheduling department after the scheduling and blocking process. Here's what that looks like graphically. At the top, you'll see a bus out for 16 hours, the blue line. At the bottom, you'll see that cut into 2 pieces of work, one piece of work for a morning operator, a different piece of work for an afternoon operator. Note what happens at 1 p.m. The afternoon operator relieves the morning operator. That time, 1 p.m. in our example, is called the operator relief time. The operator run, the work for the day, may be a straight that has one starting time and one ending time for the day. It can also be a split with multiple pieces of work that have time off in between. Maybe a piece of work in the morning is combined with a piece of work in the afternoon, with the operator having some off, unpaid time in the middle of the day. While operators typically bid for work by seniority for a period of several weeks or months, another group of operators has no set assignment. This extra board substitutes for operators on vacation, out sick, and so on. The important thing to remember is that all this scheduling work is done by people, not by computers acting on their own. The picture shows how it was done before computers. This thoughtful process is still important. However, now we do have computers that help with the process, that help with some of the mathematics. How does this work? First, bus routes are designed based on many factors. How do we connect where people are with where they want to go? How much time will it take to get from one end to the other? How much recovery time is needed? That total yields the round trip running time, also known as the cycle time. Next, we look at the demand. How many people want to ride? How many trips are needed? What frequencies or headways do we need to operate? Once that is established, then the blocking process tells us how many buses are needed. We also look at what time we start in the morning, what time we end in the evening. This, known as the span of service, is often based on passenger needs for travel to and from work. Many factors impact the actual running time for each trip, just as your drive between home and work may differ by a few minutes on different days, or with different weather or traffic patterns. Some trips carry heavy loads, others don't. Sometimes you'll have to deploy the wheelchair ramp and secure passengers who use mobility devices. As we said earlier, passengers using the bike rack can also slow things down a bit. As you gain experience, you will start observing how things change day by day, trip by trip, so you can adjust your driving pattern. You will develop a sense of pacing. This can be a challenge if you're on the extra board with different assignments every day. Even so, you'll soon get the idea of how things are generally slower or faster at different times of the day. Some of our discussion has been to give you some background to help you know what happens behind the scenes. As you are on the street, you'll see where problems develop. We don't adjust running times for short-term or unusual situations, like traffic congestion at the mall from Christmas shoppers or a holiday parade. But if a problem becomes long-standing, bus operators are perhaps in the best place to be sure management is aware of the situation. Report your observations. You're the people out there on the street seeing this every day. Even if you don't have thoughts about how to fix it, your bringing forth the situation will let someone else think of solutions. Of course, if you do have an idea, don't keep it to yourself. So why does this matter? Operating on time, maintaining the schedule is important, as you're going to see in some of our further discussion. But remember, our highest priority is to keep everyone safe, passengers, the public, and yourself. On-time performance means never leaving the time point early. But delays along the route may cause you to be a few minutes late. Generally, if you're less than 5 minutes late, you are still considered to be on time. You may be able to catch up a little bit of time in the next few route segments. At the end of the line, there should be recovery time to help you get back on time. Our emphasis is on the passenger. If we're not dependable, passengers suffer. They've already started their day. They're anxious to get to their destination, work, school, doctor, shopping. They're also concerned about getting home on time. Some passengers need to pick up children or seniors at daycare on their way home. They're even more worried if our service is unreliable. So that's another reason for you to make sure the dispatcher knows if you're getting late as the afternoon progresses, which happens often in many cities. Here's something you may not think of. We may suggest that passengers arrive at the bus stop 5 minutes before the bus is due, but studies show passengers do not arrive any earlier than they absolutely have to. They want to minimize their time waiting. So now you start to see why running early can be a problem. We may miss those passengers who are waiting until the last minute. There's also a difference between the actual waiting time and what it feels like to the passenger, what they think. Studies also show that every minute waiting seems much longer. It seems like a minute and a half or maybe even 2 minutes. Here's what that looks like. Even when the bus is on time, every minute seems longer. There's really nothing we can do if passengers don't hold up their part of the bargain, being at the bus stop before the bus is due. But we've probably all been a little late for something. So that's a good reason for you to keep an eye out for anybody running for the bus at the last minute. If you're able to wait a few seconds for them, you have made a happy passenger. If anyone on your bus complains, you can mention to them that you would do the same thing for them in the same situation if you could. Beyond their thought that they waited much longer than they actually did, if service is unreliable, passengers may have to find another way to travel. If our grocery store sometimes has bread and milk, but sometimes it doesn't, don't we change grocery stores and go somewhere that always has what we need? Unhappy passengers tend to take their frustration out on the operator. That may be you, it may be a coworker, it may be the operator of the bus behind you. We'll talk about running late first, and then we'll move into a discussion of running early. Running late is less of an issue than running early. Sometimes it's out of your control. Multiple passengers need the wheelchair ramp, emergency vehicles, just bad luck with traffic signals. Now this picture shows a device mounted on a bus that tells the operator how he or she is doing versus the schedule. In this case, it also shows how far behind the previous bus and how far ahead of the following bus the operator is. Here, at the service is frequent, the only advertised schedule is a bus every 10 minutes. So spacing is more critical than being on a precise schedule. More transit systems run on schedule than run on spacing. So if your system has something like this in place, which may be a red, yellow, green bar on a mobile data terminal, learn from the instructors, learn from other operators how much you want to rely on that display versus relying on your own knowledge as you gain experience. Quite often, such computerized systems treat all street segments alike, dividing our time point to time point running time into equal small segments. But they can't know that part of that segment between time points is on a high-speed road with few bus stops, another part goes through a neighborhood with narrow streets, maybe even some school zones. So if your system does have such a device, learn how much it can help you and when your own knowledge may be a little better. Waiting feels even longer after the bus is late, causing worries. Did it already pass me? Is it coming? Did it break down? Did it get into an accident? They're really asking, will I make it to work? Will I make it to the doctor? Will I make it to school at all, if not on time? Once the scheduled time has passed, waiting seems even longer as those worries mount up. So here's what that looks like. The feeling isn't as bad when there's a smartphone application that provides real-time information. There may still be the worry about getting there on time, but at least there is knowledge on where the bus is to replace some of the fear. Two things to remember. First, not everyone has a smartphone. Second, if you have not entered your route and run information correctly at the start of the day, when you log on, the information doesn't get to the smartphone application. This re-emphasizes how important every part of your job really is. Your system may ask that you radio the dispatcher if you're more than 5 minutes late. You shouldn't consider this as causing trouble for yourself. The real reason is so that a dispatcher or a supervisor can take action to get bus service back on time. There are many things that they can do to help out. In the transit industry, we have a saying, a late bus only gets later. So if there's a problem that recovery time can't solve, often the only solution is for that dispatcher or supervisor to take action. But to make decisions on the best option, they need to know that there is a problem. Let's get into running early. Despite all the information available and the best efforts to make schedules accurate and achievable, the transit industry still sees operators running early. Of course, there are some other factors like making sure the electronic data that we collect is accurate. But this is the one area where the operator has the most control to avoid leaving a time point early. Now, why is that so important? Well, it's easy to just focus on our job, what's in front of us here and now, and lose sight of the needs of each individual passenger. Older people, those with mobility devices, passengers with packages, parents with children in tow, they're all highly visible and easy to keep in mind. We're more gentle on the accelerator and brake. We wait for senior citizens or the vision impaired to sit down to ensure their safety. Everyone, though, is riding the bus for their own reason. Those with time-sensitive trips may not have the outward signs that remind us of their concerns. Here are some examples of the human cost when the passenger didn't miss the bus. The bus missed the passenger because it was running early. Even with the best planning and scheduling, there may be times when there was a little bit too much running time between time points. When this happens on the first part of the route, it's easy to accidentally pass those first few time points early because you're thinking ahead and you know you're going to need the time later. Doing that, however, risks missing those passengers who are cutting it close, not just at time points, but at other bus stops nearby. As we just said, when we run early, the passenger didn't miss the bus. The bus missed the passenger. I have heard the opinion that if there is nobody waiting at the time point, it's okay to pass it and keep going because the passengers already on your bus will get to their destinations faster. That's really bad practice. It's not an excuse. Perhaps the reason nobody is at the time point when you arrive is that you are early. They may be cutting their walking time a bit tight, but they will still get there before the scheduled departure. So remember, leaving the time point is the important element. If you have a light load and catch a lot of green lights, you may arrive at the time point a minute or two early. If that happens, you hold there and wait your time for departure. Never leave early. We're going to talk about some other techniques shortly. Now, when the bus misses the passenger, here's what the passenger thinks. I will suggest that in the same situation, we would be unhappy too. There's little worse for a bus passenger than to see the taillights of the bus they just missed. Pass-ups are a term that's used. Pass-up generally means somebody was waiting at the bus stop and the operator did not stop for them. Instructors and other operators will discuss the need to keep a good lookout for passengers. If you're on time or late, the question becomes whether the passenger really was at the bus stop and whether the passenger was visible. But if you're early, that's an entirely different discussion. Many systems have electronic systems called automatic vehicle location, or AVL, that will let management track back exactly where the bus was and when. So running early can not only impact the passenger. If you're running early and there's a pass-up complaint, a supervisor or a dispatcher may want to have a little bit of a discussion with you. That's very easy to prevent. Wait for your departure time before leaving a time point. Here are a few ideas. As you gain experience as an operator, you'll find more. Senior, more experienced operators are also a great resource. Here's another one that is not always thought about. Malls, hospitals, or just intersections that are time points may have multiple bus stops. A mall may have several bus stops within the area of the mall itself. A hospital may have 2 or 3 bus stops in the area. An intersection may have a bus stop before the light, another one after the traffic signal. Which one is the time point? Make sure you know which stop is the actual time point. Earlier, we mentioned waiting at that time point if you arrive a bit early. If the time point is located somewhere where you cannot wait safely, that's a good thing to report to management. They may suggest that you wait a stop or two before you get to that location. What's the right time? What time are you supposed to be operating on? Look around your house. Does every clock agree? Probably not. So you need to know exactly what clock the transit system wants you to run by. If we start the day well, we have a better chance of having a good day. Get to work on time, ready to go to work. Make sure your watch is set accurately to the official time, whatever that is. Don't delay in starting your pre-trip. If there's a problem with your bus, reporting it quickly can get it fixed or can get a different bus assigned. Remember what we said. If you leave the garage late, you will be late from the time of your first trip, and you may be playing catch-up all morning. You'll develop a sense of pacing. It comes with experience. Another option to waiting at a time point is when you realize ahead of time that you're going to arrive early. Slow down a bit. You will learn traffic light sequences. Slowing down a bit to catch a yellow light, which means stop as long as you can stop safely, can slow you up by a minute or so. The passengers on board don't notice because it's a traffic signal that stopped you. They don't realize that that actually may be under your control. That's known as dragging the line. Think of dragging your feet to slow down. We've discussed what happens on a typical transit system. There is no stupid question other than the one that was not asked. So ask for clarification, ask for information, ask for help. Instructors, supervisors, managers, other operators are all there to help you and provide their knowledge. Everyone wants you to become successful. Being a bus operator can be a good career, a long-term steady job. There are benefits to staying until you get higher seniority, because with higher seniority, you can pick work that you like better than the work that you may be on when you just get out of training. Also, the knowledge you gain on the street will be helpful if you want to move into supervision, management. Maybe you want to consider moving into the scheduling department. Many operators move into such roles, which is the reason that I introduced myself and mentioned that I started as a bus cleaner and I came up through the ranks myself. So, thank you for your time and for your attention. As the desk sergeant always said in an old TV show,
let's be careful out here.